The mystery of Brady Cook's eligibility in 2025 has been solved by the man himself, Brady Cook. So you know what? I'm going to give you our quarterback's answer to this question coming up right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And speaking of basketball, yes, we got to talk about another loss, and at this point, a winless SEC slate almost feels inevitable at this point, doesn't it? If you're going to lose by 15 points to Arkansas, I don't think you can count on anything positive at this point. But you know what? First, though, I do want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. At Make Every Moment More, new customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And as promised, yes, I'm going to start with an answer from Brady Cook, quite literally from his mouth, because, well, I slid into old Brady's DMs yesterday afternoon. I got a little bit annoyed with myself. I'm going, why am I trying to figure this out myself? I'm just going to go to the direct source. So I asked Brady Cook, Brady, I'm wondering about 2021. Did that count as a redshirt year for you or not? Because under the current rules, Brady played 4 regular season games in 2021 and the bowl game, which does not count towards that 4-game cap of redshirt eligibility there. So that was my main question, and I made it clear, Brady, basically what I'm wondering is, could you potentially be eligible in 2025? And the reason this had all come up, a too long didn't read version, as the kids like to say these days. Basically, I was under the assumption forever that 2024 was Brady Cook's last season, but then I had been led to believe by somebody else out there in the Mizzou beat. I honestly don't remember where I read this, but somebody led me down this path, and I started thinking, gosh, maybe he could be eligible for 2024. Well, from Brady Cook himself, here is his answer. He says 2024 is my last year of eligibility. So there you go. Mystery solved. I suppose. It truly will be Brady Cook's last dance in 2024. Now, I suppose if you want to nitpick here, you could say, or get even more technical, I suppose would be a better way of putting it, there is, I suppose, a potential waiver here. But based on what Brady Cook's answer, I'm just going to go with what he says. I'd say 2024, he's probably ready to move on from college football after this season. It sure sounds like. And by the way, even asking him that, even if that is a possibility, him thinking about going for a waiver for 2025 or something, saying, hey, it was just one more game, and, well, by the rules of today, I would be eligible. Maybe there's an argument there. My point is, there's no reason to even ask Brady that at this point, because I'm sure he himself doesn't even know if he would go down that path. I'm not even saying that is a potential path, just kind of heading something off at the pass that I know, the message board types are going to bring up for sure. But I think when Brady Cook says, quote, again, 2024 is my last year of eligibility, hey, that's about as clear cut as it's going to get. So again, thanks to Brady Cook for taking a few minutes out of his day to clarify that for me and my listeners. And another hard-fought game by the Missouri Tigers this morning, and, well, early this afternoon as well. Shawn East with an excellent game for Missouri, 33 points, about half of those from the free throw line, and that's certainly a theme I'm going to get to here in just a little bit. But Tigers trailed by 2 with a nice buzzer-beating play by Shawn East. Not quite Tyus Edney with 7.5 seconds left, but a nice individual play by East nonetheless. And there was just a lot of individual efforts by East in that basketball game, though. Just 6 assists, I believe, for Missouri on the game. Not exactly the best ball movement I've seen in the history of basketball. But, it was interesting. Matt Watkins from Rock M Nation, he pointed out that in Missouri's 13 SEC games, at about the 10-minute mark of the second half, Missouri generally, the average score, they're trailing by 5 points, and they end up losing by 11. Well, that was very much the theme once again tonight. It just felt like Missouri played hard, executed its defensive plan pretty good for the most part, I thought, especially for the first 25, 30 minutes, though Khalif Battle, who ended up with 42 points, the 7th most in Razorback history tonight, that's a tough one right there. Hard to defend that. But I will say that Mizzou consistently and consciously packed the paint, no doubt about that, and dared Arkansas to shoot 3-pointers, and yet the Tigers still could not avoid committing 28 fouls, and that would have resulted in 34 Arkansas free throw attempts. And you know what? I absolutely hated that game in the second half, and I think everyone involved in it did too, from the coaches to the players to the announcers to everybody in the stands, because that was just an absolute foul fest in the second half, and I truly don't even know how you play defense. This has been a running theme of this basketball season. It's been that way in the NBA too, but even in college basketball these days, it just feels like there's no way to stop a penetrating ball handler. If there's any contact whatsoever, it doesn't matter how straight up you go. It doesn't matter how ridiculously obvious it is that the offensive player is the one who's initiating contact. It just feels like there's nothing you can do. And while, hey, you could say, wow, 88-73, that's a pretty high-scoring basketball game. Yeah, high scoring because both teams made 56 points from the free throw line combined. I'm sorry, that's just not that interesting a basketball to me. Perhaps you disagree, but that's just me. But anyway, again, Missouri, I think in a lot of ways, at least they had a game plan. And just as I was thinking, hey, they're executing this plan okay, I do have to question once again, why would you switch Shawn East and Connor Vanover? And what I mean is switch them defensively. Vanover's man, a big man, comes up. Well, now you've got Vanover on a point guard, essentially. Why switch? See, that's the thing. This isn't an argument of switching in general. This is very specific to this game because Missouri was playing 5 feet off of the three-point shooter in that case. Shawn East was 5 feet off of his man. If you're going to play that far off of the three-point line and dare a guy to shoot, well, then what is the point of switching? One of the advantages of switching is not giving up that look. So instead, just go under that screen. Or, by the way, if you've got that much room, you can probably just go over the screen and still have plenty of room to recover on the dribble penetration. Also, speaking of an East Connor Vanover conundrum here, there was one moment in the second half. Vanover started the second half, played the first 8.5 minutes or so. East has got to throw it up high to Vanover at the rim. He's 7'5". He's pointing up in the air. The last thing you want to do is throw the ball below his eye level. I'm just telling you, that should have been an easy 2, and then Missouri trails by 5. I'm just telling you, Connor Vanover can be an effective basketball player if you use him correctly, even without the three-point shot. And I think that's the problem. Without the three-point shot, I think offensively, Dennis Gates just didn't really know what to do with Connor Vanover. And I'm certainly not saying throw the ball to him in the post. I'm saying just get him near the rim, get him in the dunker spot. Then he can just mess stuff up near the rim with putbacks, as we saw that nice dunk putback with the under 12 timeout that tied the game at 50. Again, I think Connor can be maybe the most effective center that we have, though defensively, he is what he is. He's slow. He's obviously very tall, but at the same time, that rim protection that he gives you in theory is often negated by the fact that he gets out of position, and especially if you're going to switch him onto guards. I mean, good luck. I'm sorry. I just think when Vanover's in the game, you got to abandon those switching principles on his man. If you want to switch 1 through 4, fine, but the 5 guy, he's got to be in drop coverage. He's got to be back and helping and just sticking with his man. As a guard at that point, whether you're going over or under, you got to do something there. It can't be a switch. That just doesn't work. And quite honestly, too, it just showed up Missouri's lack of depth at that point, the 50-50 tie after that putback dunk by Vanover. Well, that was Missouri's first bench points of the game, about 30 minutes into the ball game or so. And Vanover looked completely gassed, too. That was probably the longest stretch of basketball he's played all year. And it showed. It was a good stretch for him, but unfortunately, just nothing was quite enough to topple the Razorbacks. But you know what? Coming up here in just a little bit, we are going to talk more about this basketball game, including, well, a little bit of a slow stretch here for Tamar Bates. Going to try to get to the bottom of that coming up here in just a little bit. But first, let's talk about eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With more than 122 million parts, for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home the victory. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. And hopefully I didn't sound too critical of Shawn East, certainly in my pointing out that him and Vanover had a bit of a disconnect a couple times. Well, really, that has as much to do with Vanover and his tough start to the season, if anything. Again, just one of many, many little things among a lot of other big things, too, like John Tunjay's injury, Caleb Grill's injury. But Connor Vanover starting off the season with a totally unnecessary and unwarranted and frankly unjust 3-game suspension for participating in the Portsmouth Invitational, for playing basketball and not getting paid, by the way, as far as I can tell, even though you can get paid nowadays in college basketball. So again, explain to me how any of that was just or made any sense whatsoever. But again, it's not really about Shawn East so much. It's just a bit of a disconnect there. And, if anything, I'm blaming Dennis Gates. So really, Shawn East obviously plays 38 minutes in that game, 33 points, 2 of 14 from 2-point range. The Arkansas Razorbacks did a nice job of running East off of the 3-point line and forcing him to go right against his natural instincts, against his strong left hand, obviously. But East obviously found his way to the free throw line 16 times, and Herky jerked his way to an excellent offensive game. The fact that he didn't take any 3-pointers, though, is a bit surprising. And honestly, if anything, as good as Shawn East's 3-point shooting has been this season, I would say he needs to take more. Sort of like Nick Honor has been probed by Dennis Gates frequently to be more aggressive with his trigger from 3-point line. I think you could say the same thing for Shawn East, but that's a real nitpick in a game where he basically carried the team. There were 2 other guys in double digits, in Tamar Bates and Nick Honor. Noah Carter had 8 points, but just a rough game for him, and basically nobody else on the team is an offensive threat right now. You've got 4 guys who can score, and that's about it. Again, I can say that Connor Vanover is a threat at the rim. Certainly Aiden Shaw is a lob threat. But right now, Jordan Butler, Mabor Majak, and Anthony Robinson are giving you quite literally nothing offensively, and that's just too bad. It really is. But it is what it is at this point. And defensively, if you're Missouri, I think it really is a failing that you let Khalif Battle go off for 42 points in a game in which nobody else is really doing a whole heck of a lot else for Arkansas. I felt especially in the second half of that ball game, the last 10 minutes of the ball game in particular, if you're Missouri, you got to see how the game is actually playing out at this point. The Battle kid is just on absolute fire. There are flames shooting out of his rear end at this point. Please note that and don't let him get any open looks at this point. But again, to be fair to Missouri and every team in college basketball right now, playing defense has been a heck of a lot easier in the past. I can promise you that. And nice game from Nick Honor, too, of course. And, well, he hit a couple of his three-pointers, by the way, off of second chance opportunities. I always felt like the kick-out three off an offensive rebound, one of the best shots in basketball. Always a great option, especially if you're a big guy to me who's got an offensive rebound. But, hey, you're surrounded by the trees down there. To me, it's so much better to kick that thing out to an open teammate at the three-point line who's already facing the basket. That's one thing that makes that a high percentage shot. But it's just so much better than just forcing that thing up as if you have to against three people or something, like it's a game of 21. But it did feel like Honor did run out of gas a little bit at the end of the game, along with Vanover. And you know, Bates has really possibly been on fumes lately offensively too. He's playing really hard at the other end of the court defensively as well, and it's just almost too much, I think, at this point. The last four games, Bates just hasn't quite had it offensively, and for the most part, I think that's just a sign of just a lack of depth and lack of options here really for Missouri. And Honor's minutes really aren't all that different from last season, but obviously if you look at the possession percentage, usage rate, all that stuff, and if you just watch the type of basketball Honor's playing this season as opposed to last season, well, it's just a different load for him. He was not used to having to take on such an actual scoring load last season. He was much more able to just run the offense, be the captain, that type of thing. Well, this season, he's got to be a heck of a lot more than that, and it's taken its toll on him. You can tell. And when it comes to Missouri's new athletic director, I've already been asked by a couple people, could it be John Sundvold? Well, I highly doubt it, to be quite honest with you. That's just my instincts. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. There's at least one reason why I could at least fathom the possibility. So let's talk about Sonny coming up here in just a little bit. But first, let's talk FanDuel Sportsbook, because here's the deal. It's basketball season, so you know what that means. It's time to get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. It's FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So as far as a timeline goes for a hiring of Missouri's next athletic director, who the heck knows? They could come up with somebody next week or next month. For all I know, I would say within the next 3 to 4 weeks, they'll have somebody, but does it really matter? It certainly doesn't matter as much as finding a head football coach or a defensive coordinator or anything like that, just in terms of pure timing. And frankly, with the way the athletic director position is at Missouri, well, I think we've kind of found out it's maybe not as important as it is at other institutions, perhaps, but certainly is a very important position, no doubt about that. And, well, John Sunvold, the former great Missouri basketball player, of course, announcer, financial whiz, all that good stuff. Well, his name has been brought up by a few people I know, and my immediate response is, I don't know, I kind of doubt it, right? Does John Sunvold really want that job? Seems like he's got a pretty good life these days. Again, just outside looking in, I don't know the guy whatsoever, but it seems to me he would rather, I would think, if I were in his shoes, I'll just say if it were me, I think I'd rather just keep calling basketball games and living that lifestyle. But you know what? The reason I can't dismiss it completely is because, well, John Sunvold does play well with the Board of Curators. In fact, I believe he was a member of the Board of Curators when Eli Drinkwitz was hired, for example. So obviously Sunvold can play nicely with these people, it would seem. And if this is indeed, as I've somewhat suggested, maybe somewhat of a figurehead type position to some extent, maybe they don't need an athletic director who works 70 hours a week. Maybe Sonny can still get out on the golf course on occasion in that case. So I could maybe see that, not totally out of the realm of possibility. But again, from my perspective, I'd be pretty shocked if that's who it ended up with. I think you're going to see somebody who is a current athletic director or a high up at a major institution, somebody like Sarah Bumgarner at Texas, somebody like that who is not the current AD there, but somebody very much high up in the pecking order, or obviously another athletic director at a different institution, something like that. But you know what? Whoever the next athletic director is, hopefully we're going to get past this basketball season soon enough. Now a school record 4 losses in a row there, according to Tom Hart on the broadcast at the end of the game. And according to KenPom.com, a 39.7% chance of a winless record the rest of the season. Yikes. It has not exactly gone well. And you know what? Speaking of not being pleased, Dennis Gates seemed none too pleased with Eric Musselman at the end of the game. I suppose I just have to guess here. I haven't seen a question asked or answered on this at this point yet, but that last sequence in the basketball game was hysterically funny. By the way, when there was no reason whatsoever, shot clock is off, ball is thrown ahead by, I believe, the big scorer of the night for Arkansas. Battle throws it up ahead to a kid named Blocker, who goes in for some type of, slam dunk type contest type of thing. I guess his knee gives out on him or something, and he, just airballs the dunk and falls down in embarrassing fashion. As Tom Hart said, well, glad he's not hurt there. That was about all you could say nicely about that moment. And then on the other end, Noah Carter somehow missed a meaningless layup from about 1 foot, and kind of a hilarious nod to how this season has gone so far. That really felt like the icing on the cake. But I think Gates just wasn't very happy with old Blocker. By the way, his name's not Dunker, it's Blocker. So we should have had a clue there. But Dennis Gates probably just didn't love that. Oh, cool, my team's 0-14 now, and you're just going to do your Showtime dunk at the end of the game too. Thanks, really appreciate that. But so I could see why he was a little bit irritated there. Didn't seem like he was going to make that big of a deal out of it. But at the same time, he's probably not exactly wanting a real long embrace and handshake from Eric Musselman in that moment, which I can totally understand. But hey, thanks for joining me as always on this here podcast. Thanks for making this show your first listen every day. And for your second listen, you should definitely check out Locked On Sports today on YouTube, or for free on the Amazon Fire TV app. Yes, the Fire TV channels app over on your Amazon Fire TV. Find Locked On Sports today. Available now. It's the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Check it out on YouTube and your Amazon Fire TV. So until next time, I'm John Miller, and thanks for listening to Locked On Mizzou.